What's up, Lost Boys? Here we are for our Fantasy Football Week 5 recap and preview to Week 6. But first, Chiefs! 5-0, baby, going into the bye. Three-peat, let's bring it. Let's get right in. Oh, yeah, and Royals taking the game 1-1, coming here to KC. Awesome time to be a KC fan right now. Let's get right into fantasy because we had a great week. We're going to start with our matchup of the week from last week. 4-0, 4-0, Denny, Roman, and as I predicted, Roman takes the victory. Denny was just too much behind the 8 ball last week. He had too many guys on bye week. It was a rough week for Denny. He only put up 121 points. His quarterbacks are a little weak. Daniel Jones had his best game of the year, but Denny's number 2 quarterback has been weak all year. Gardner Minshew this week. He has Herbert playing, which Herbert's not passing a lot. CeeDee Lamb is okay, not doing much for him. Horse Turd Hair had a pretty decent week again this week. James Cook had a decent week, but Denny didn't have any guys go off. And on the flip side, Roman put up 170 points, and he didn't necessarily have any guys go off, but his team was a teener. You know, everyone put up in the teens. Ayuk finally had a coming out party. We saw Rashid Shaheed, get that long touchdown against the Chiefs. Trey Sermon, which was the backup of Jonathan Taylor, ended up getting a touchdown. So Matt's team overall, it's looking pretty good. He's 5-0. He's in first place. He's taken in back-to-back weeks. He's taken down Josh. He's taken down Denny. He's making his claim to be the best team in the league. He also has a weapon at kicker, which is really, really important. Young Hook. So Matt's team looked good. He gets the dub. He stays in first place, takes down Denny. Next game, another big upset. Barreto takes down Josh in an ass whipping this week. Barreto's team finally decides to wake up. His guys go off. Burrow has his best game of his career. 5 touchdowns, almost 400 yards against that Ravens paper defense. Pittman gets a touchdown finally this year. DeAndre Swift has a monster game. Chubba Hubba Hubba has a good game. Kittle gets a touchdown. Kelsey had his best game of the year. Multiple guys on Justin's team had their best games of the year. So Justin's team gets in the win column, hits his second win. Great job for Justin. On the flip side for Josh, drops 2 in a row. Last week to Matt, this week to Justin. This week was going to be a rough one for Josh anyway. He was down his top 3 wide receivers. No Devontae Adams, no Malik Neighbors, no Jameson Williams. Breece Hall's been a no-show the last 2 weeks. He continued it this week with 5 points. The Jets don't know what they're doing on offense. Which would happen 30 minutes ago. They fired their head coach. So we'll see if that changes things. But Breece Hall's been a bust. Speaking of bust, Josh Allen started the season the best fantasy football player. He's been dead the last 2 weeks. Didn't do much at all. And 2 good game scripts for him. Still didn't matter. So Josh takes the L. His team just had a bad week, and Justin had a great week. And Justin is creeping up there. He's only 1 game behind Josh. He's 2-3 after starting out 0-3. So gets the 2 victories in a row. Next, we're going to go with our other great game that I was expecting. Tim versus Cal. Wasn't actually a great game. Cal beat Tim pretty handily. Tim's team didn't show up at all. And Cal's team really didn't show up that much either, but it was enough to get the free dub. 131 points for Cal. Caleb Williams is finally starting to come around for Cal, which is dangerous for the rest of the league because that was a huge weak spot for him. CJ Stroud, we got to keep an eye on that Nico Collins injury for Cal. If Bijan can actually do something, then Cal's team has a claim for maybe the best team in the league. With Cal getting Worthy, because his weaknesses was his flex spots. He has Worthy in his flex. Now that Worthy's the number 1 wideout for Cal, he has Kareem Hunt now, which is going to be in there for at least probably another 4 weeks until Pacheco comes back. I mean, Cal's feasting on Chiefs. He has Marvin Harrison. He has Nico Collins. He has Bijan Robinson. He has Kenneth Walker. Cal's team's looking scary. Tim on the flip side just had a bad week. I really like Tim's team, but Amari Cooper didn't do much. Deebo Samuel fell asleep at the stadium and at halftime, never came out. Who knows what happened there? A-Chain got hurt. This is A-Chain's biggest thing is injury. If the guy can stay healthy, he's a top 3 running back. Unfortunately, he's gotten hurt in 2 games this year. You're starting Antonio Gibson, not good. Tutu Atwell. Tim's team it was a rough week for Tim. He had a couple guys on bye. Purdy also had a bad week. So a very forgettable week for Tim, falls to 3-2. Next, we're going to go with Cass versus Llama. Speaking of upsets, Cass can't be happy right now, okay? He's our reigning Super Bowl champion. He started off 2-0. He was on fire. He was number 2 in points. His team was looking red hot. And then, boom, upset. Boom, upset. Boom, upset. Loses to Matt, his first loss, at least on a Brent Strange late touchdown. Then loses to Barreto after Rashee Rice gets hurt. Barreto's first win of the season. Cass nowhere near thought he was going to lose to Barreto. Upset last week. And then this past week, loses to Ryan. Cass looked at his season and saw Barreto, Ryan back-to-back and thought, win. I'm gonna be rolling those. Nope, 3 in a row. Cass has fallen to below 500. His team is still awesome. He put up 158 points, which is a lot of points. He started the week great on that Thursday Night Football. Baker and Mike Evans got him 43 points. Kyler was awesome for him too, but Aaron Jones got hurt. So not only has he lost Rashee Rice, now what it's looking like for the season, which sucks. Aaron Jones was rolling in that first quarter. He gets hurt. Vikings offense stalls. Jerome Ford isn't really doing much for him. Brian Thomas is coming around, and Cass's kicker is probably the second best kicker in the league, Kaimi Fairbairn, which is irony at its finest. But I mean, Chris Olave died last night against the Chiefs, which most number 1 wide receivers do for, you got the best corner in the league in McDuffie. So he did nothing. He needed him to outscore the Chiefs D and the kicker to have a chance against Ryan. So didn't happen. Cass loses. On the flip side to Ryan, all of a sudden, Ryan's now 2-3. He was 0-2. He got a win. He got a loss. He got a win. So Ryan's team, his quarterbacks were really, really bad this week. But everyone else on his team did really, really well. Jamar Chase is coming around. He had 36 points this week. He had a great game last week. Garrett Wilson finally did something. So Ryan's strength at leaving the draft was his wide receivers. You saw that this week with Chase and Wilson and DJ Moore. Those 3 guys combined for 80 points. 80 points. I mean, Ryan got 15 points combined from his quarterbacks. He still put up 171 points because of those 3 wide receivers. Butker did great for him. Chase Brown is looking good with Zach Moss maybe being hurt. Ryan's team's looking pretty scary right now. If he can just get a little bit out of his quarterbacks, which is a big if, Ryan's team could be a team to reckon with. We'll see what happens. Next, we're going to go with our final game from this past week. It was the Titty Man, Titty Biscuits, versus Jace. Wah, wah, wah. Jace falls to 0-5. Pat gets 2 wins in a row. He's creeping at 2-3. Jace's team is it's in a rough spot. 0-5, guys. 0-5. I mean, this is bad territory. He didn't have a bad week. He put up 161 points, which was pretty solid. I think it was the third most of the week, third or fourth most of the week, but didn't matter. Pat's team decided to go off 186 points for Pat. Lamar went off. Joe Flacco comes in there. He's dropping dimes, 26 fantasy points. T. Higgins has his first huge game of the year. Pat starts Rico Dowdle. That's a turd. Nope, not this week. Golden turd. Gets him 18 points. Darnell Mooney got him started off on the right foot on Thursday night, 27 points. Denver, I mean, you name it, Pat's team went off. I mean, when you score 186 points, you're going to have a lot of guys go off. So Pat's team ride and dies with Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson has to have a monster week for Pat to have any kind of chance, this week he had a monster week. Jason on the flip side, he had some guys on bye. He had Jalen Hurts. The Eagles were on bye. Devontae Smith. So this was going to be a rough one for him anyway. He still did good. Geno Smith's looking like a real fantasy asset. He's probably going to start Geno with Jalen Hurts going forward, which will give him a nice 1-2 punch. ETN, though, on the flip side, is going backwards, so it hurts Jace's running backs. Josh Jacobs, he got his first touchdown of the year. Tucker's looking okay, but he started Juju. We'll see if he keeps Juju in his lineup. Anyway, Jace's team, after he made that terrible trade with Denny, he lost a lot of his depth with Sam Laporta and Adunze and Goff. He could have used, maybe if he had still had Goff, he could have used Geno for trading for something that he's actually going to use. I mean, he still has Paul. He traded for Pollard, and he just doesn't play Pollard. I know Pollard was on bye this week, but still, we'll see if he starts him. He might have to put Pollard in instead of ETN next week. But anyway, Jace falls to 0-5. Pat gets 2-3. And after this week's games, we're going to look at our standings real quick before we get to this week's games. Matt, like I said, 5-0. Guy's in first place. He's crushing it. He has by far the least amount of points against. So not only is he getting lucky with the points against, he has 757 points, which is I think fourth in the league, but he's 5-0, so it's all that matters. Matt's first place, followed by Denny 4-1, the guy he took down this week. Denny had the bye week this week, so he's probably going to get back rolling. Denny's team's looking really great. Third place is still Josh. He's 3-2, tied with Tim, who's in fourth place, but Josh has about a 150 point lead on Tim. Then you have a cluster bomb of 2 and 3 guys. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th place. All 2 and 3 guys. Cass, Pat, Cal, Ryan, Justin. Everyone is 2 and 3. All these guys are going to be battling all season long. So I can't wait to see what happens. Like I said, fantasy's a long season. Who knows what can happen? But this is going to be a fun season for everyone except for our last place team, Jace. 0-5. It's almost impossible to climb out from that. Jace could play spoiler. His team is good enough to beat some of these good teams, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough to make the playoffs. So those are our standings. Guys, we're going to get into our week 6 games, and we got some good ones, fellas. You know, I got a couple options here to go with game of the week, but I think I'm going to go with Josh versus Ryan this week. These two guys have a history. They were co-champions a couple years ago. They're always competing. Their teams are looking pretty good, especially Ryan's team. He's starting to come around. He's got 2 wins now. He left the draft awful. Josh was very critical of that draft because it was awful. But now he's only 1 game behind Josh. This would be sweet, sweet revenge for Ryan to take Josh down after that draft. But it's going to be a tough one because unfortunately Ryan, he does have some buys this week. He is starting Deshaun Watson. They are going against Philly's awful defense, so it could be good. Rodgers is starting for him. Rodgers does play against Buffalo's terrible defense. So Ryan's matchups are looking pretty good, but unfortunately for Ryan, buys could bite him in the butt. On the flip side, Josh gets a couple guys back from bye. He gets Neighbors back. We'll see what Devontae Adams' situation looks like. So Josh's team in general, Allen's going against that Jets. So that Jets-Buffalo game is monstrous. You got Ryan with Rodgers and Wilson. You got Josh with Josh Allen and Breece Hall. So each player, I mean, it's a monster game. It's the Monday Night Football game, by the way. So those two guys, I mean, that's going to be an awesome way to end the week next week. On the flip side, Josh just, I'm going to give the edge to Josh this week. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. I do think Chase Brown is the X factor in this week for Ryan. He's been good. If Zach Moss doesn't play, they're going against the Giants' Swiss cheese defense, and Chase Brown has looked electric this season. He could have a monster day, so I'm going to make that the X factor for that game. We'll see. I'm going to give the edge to Josh, though. Next, we're going to go with Tim versus Cass. I think this can be a hell of a game, guys. Cass is reeling 3 losses in a row. He's playing Tim. Unfortunately for Tim, though, his best player, JJ's on a bye week. So Cass catches a break right there. He's going to have to replace him with someone. He also has Antonio Gibson. Tim's also has HN on bye. So this is Tim's bad bye week. It's just, call it how it is. It's going to be brutal for him. Cass on the flip side doesn't really have anyone on bye other than Aaron Jones, which was hurt anyway. So that might be good to get him some rest. Cass gets J.K. Dobbins back this week. He's going to be starting Brian Thomas in his flex spot. But I think the biggest thing this week is just going to be the quarterbacks. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. You got Kyler playing Green Bay, and you got Baker playing New Orleans, and then Purdy in Seattle, and Trevor Lawrence in Chicago. Fortunately for Tim, Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked that good, number 1. And number 2, Chicago's defense has looked awesome. So I don't foresee that happening. The only chance Tim has, once again, my X factor, we're going to know Thursday night, if Purdy and Debo have a couple connections, okay? Because that Seattle defense has not looked good. They have a lot of injuries in the back end. If Purdy connects with Debo and gets him off to a good start on the week, then Tim has a chance. But I just think it's going to be too much with all of his buys. I give the edge to Cass this week, taking down Tim. Cass gets back in the win column. Next, we're going to go Denny, 4-1, versus suddenly hot Game of Pones, Barreto, after 2 wins in a row, knocking off Cass and Josh in back-to-back weeks. I mean, who would have thought that a few weeks ago? Justin taking on Denny. Now he's going for his 3rd giant slaying week against Denny. Now, Denny gets most of his guys back. A.J. Brown has been out for a few weeks. He had his bye last week. Before that, he had injuries. He gets him back. Horse turd hair going against Washington D, who's been really bad. this could be a monster week for Denny. I mean, he might put up 200 points. Goff versus Dallas's defense has been terrible. Daniel Jones. We don't like Daniel Jones, but who may be the worst defense in the league? Cincinnati, and he's going against Cincinnati. So that CeeDee Lamb, who has maybe the fourth worst defense. Detroit's defense has been awful. Every matchup for Denny looks phenomenal. On the flip side, Justin, as much as I give you praise the last couple weeks, this is a tough week for you. Not only is Denny going to be rocking, you're on bye week. Patrick Mahomes on bye. Travis Kelce on bye. Jordan Addison on bye. So you're missing 3 of your starters. Your team already wasn't deep anyway. And I just think that's going to be the factor. I think Denny beats Justin by 80 points this week. That's my bold prediction. A slaughter here. This one's over with nice and quickly. Denny destroys Barreto, goes to 4 or 5-1. Barreto falls back down to 2-4. Next, we're going to go with Roman, our first place team, 5-0 versus Jace, 0-5. Now you would think this is going to be a slaughter. You know, you got the best team in the league. You got the worst team in the league. Nah, not yet. This is Fantasy 101 for you. Jace is 0-5, but last week was his bye week. He gets Jalen Hurts back. He gets Tony Pollard back. He gets Devontae Smith back. You never know. And on the flip side, I mean, Roman's team looks good. Don't get me wrong. But Saquon has been a stud this year. He's going against Cleveland's tough defense. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor plays. I don't know. It's tough because I really, really like Matt's matchups. Dak is versus Detroit. I just got done talking about that. Jordan Love against Arizona's bad defense. I just got done talking about that. But I'm going to give the edge to Jace. And mainly because of the upset factor. Who knows what's going to happen here. I think Jace is going to pull this out. I think Jalen Hurts has his first monster game of the year this year. I think maybe Devontae Smith gets a touchdown. I think Josh Jacobs does great for Green Bay. Maybe like a weird thing where Jordan Love does a great job, gets him down to the 5-yard line, and Josh Jacobs ninjas the touchdowns kind of thing. Those are the things that are going to have to happen for Jace to get the dub here. He's going to have to find a new defense because it's on bye. But in general, I'm going to go with the upset of the week. Jace takes down Matt. Jace gets his first win. Matt gets his first loss. We're going to find out about that in our last but not least game. Maybe our second and third hottest teams in the league. Bold to say. Titty Sucker, 4,000, Cal versus the Titty Biscuits. Pat, this is the Titty Bowl, guys. We all want to go visit the Titty Bowl. Sounds like a great time. Cal's been rocking. I loved Cal's draft coming out. He had some bad beats early in the season with points against. He had a favorable one this week with Tim. And his team is scary, guys. I mean, C.J. Stroud. Caleb Williams is finally starting to go, and he's playing against shitty Jacksonville defense. Marvin Harrison is the man. Nico Collins is going to be key. Hamstrings are really tricky. If Nico plays, it's so good for Cal just because it helps his quarterback too. We're going to keep an eye on that. Pickens with the Vegas defense has been bad. Bijan, Carolina. If there's a game for Bijan to break out, it's this Carolina game. It has to happen. I don't know. Cal, he loses Hunt. He loses Worthy this week for buys, which is a little rough, but he replaces them with a couple decent guys in Ladd McConkey and Devin Singletary. So Cal's on the flip side. Pat, I mentioned Lamar has to go off. Good thing he's playing Washington D because Washington D's awful. T. Higgins has to go off. Good thing he's playing Giants D. He's going to be awful. Pat's thing is just, I mean, he can't be starting Rico Dowdle again, but he is, and it's against Detroit, so we'll see. I really love this matchup. I really love both guys on each team. This is a coin flip, and you know, guys, let's do it. We're gonna flip it up. You know, last time I did a coin flip, the coin landed for Pat. This time, not this time. It went with Cal. Cal gets the edge this week. I think Bijan is going to be the difference. I think he has a 25-plus point game. I think he has his coming out party against Carolina. I just think it's too much. I think Lamar puts on a show. I think T. Higgins puts on a show. But I just don't think it's enough for Pat. We'll see with that Colts quarterback. You know, I really think it's bad if they start Anthony Richardson, if I'm being honest with you. If they start Flacco, Pat might have a chance this week. So keep an eye on that, guys. That's all of our matchups for the week. Love you guys. Chiefs bye. Go Royals. Go Bears. Have a great week, guys.